Do I call it Mary J? Do I call it pot? Do I call it weed? Like what will make Aurora think I'm cool? And this isn't the first time I've smoked. That's literally, I was coming in, I was like, what the fuck do I call it?
I don't remember actually what you called it.
Me
but
neither.
I remember thinking, wow, this woman is extremely cool.
You're such a good liar. You're such a good actor. Welcome to Liquid Courage, the podcast where I, Amanda Pereira, sit down with a fellow female artist that I admire and ask them the questions I've never had the guts to ask them before. Sounds scary? Well, it is. So I use a little liquid courage in the form of their favorite drink. We cheers, chat, and connect as I attempt to soak up all the wisdom these women have to offer. Today I sit down with Aurora Browne and smoke some joints. I've never felt so cool. Aurora is a 4-time Second City Mainstage alum and has won a ton of awards for acting, writing, and producing, including a Canadian Comedy Award and multiple Canadian Screen Awards. You may know Aurora best from the award-winning series Baroness Von Sketch Show, which she created and stars in alongside Carolyn Taylor, Meredith MacNeil, and Jennifer Whalen. You can also see Aurora on screen in ABC's Newborn Moms, CBC Gem's Writer's Block, and in an upcoming episode of Odd Squad. Aurora and I recorded remotely, so the audio quality is a little wonky in some parts, but maybe listening to it will just make you feel like you're a little high and it'll be like you're right there with us. You're welcome. So Aurora is an actor, writer, improviser, producer, and a woman I admire immensely. It looks so cute on my end that you have this beautiful, oh my God, can you tell I smoked? Oh my God, I'm so sorry, listeners. Oh, that's just gonna be my voice. We're gonna cut all of this out. What's happening?
I think you're getting into those, you know, don't poo-poo this kind of rough voice because that will get you literal, it'll get you work. There was one fall where I had a constant cold. I booked so much voice work because I just had that kind of like a little bit ill kind of female sounding voice.
Like the smelly cat, like Lisa Kudrow's smelly cat. That's what it is. All right, well, we're gonna go with it.
Okay.
So today I am sitting down with the Aurora Browne. I always say your last name when I say, I never just say Aurora. I'm like the
That's
Aurora Browne.
There's some people you just have their whole name, and there's some people I always say their last name. Usually it's if it's a name that there's a lot of, like Chris's or, you know, Jennifer's or something like that. But I don't mind. I like my whole name, so you can take it. You can say it.
I think it's because you're like a little, Oh, yeah.
Well, I should ask you how you say your last name, because I know how it sounds in my head.
Oh, I want to hear how it sounds in your head.
Pereira?
Oh, Aurora. Right? Yes. That's actually like more accurate than I was going to say it.
Oh.
Because I was going to say Pereira, which is what I tell people. But no, that's how you say it. Pereira.
I think I've lived near Little Portugal long enough. Yeah. Am I right?
Yeah.
There you go.
There we go. There we go. Oh my gosh, I feel so seen. Well, I think I also say Aurora Browne because you are, I know this is an odd thing to hear or to say to somebody completely genuinely, but you're like a little bit of a rock star to me. So I think that's why I also just go like full name.
Like, when you say that, I kind of want to go into therapist mode and say like, okay, accept what you feel.
Yep.
You know, I'm just a human. So what does rock star mean to you? Kind of thing. I mean, I guess I know what you mean, not about myself, but I have people I feel that way about. Mm-hmm. So why shouldn't you feel that? It's just really strange to me to hear somebody say that about me. It's like, oh, I'm not worth the rock star treatment, but okay, sure, I'll take it.
You know what? I think we're all worth the rock star treatment. And I really, what I like to think is like, maybe there's someone out there who thinks I'm a rock star. I just don't know who they are. But there's probably somebody. My mom probably thinks that. Someone, you know what I mean? Well, today for your liquid courage, we are smoking weed. And I should say to anyone out there who doesn't know, it's legal in Toronto. So get at us. It's legal here. We're doing it. And we were talking a little bit before going on, but I want to say at first when I sort of asked you and you said, oh, like, would you be willing to sort of add this into the mix? I was so scared
immediately scared. I was like, oh my God, people are going to judge me. Like, is my mom going to be mad? Like I went in I freaked out a little bit. And then ultimately I was like, fuck, I'm not passing up an opportunity to smoke with Aurora Browne. What am I doing? And I should also say for viewers, I was saying my recording setup is very far from any of my windows in my apartment. So I smoked prior outside, and I might go smoke again. But Aurora is smoking right here, and I feel so cool.
Oh, well, we have a room that we've decided we can do that. And in fact, I could open the window a little bit, although that would maybe ruin the sound. But first of all, thank you for allowing me to smoke rather than drink. I was saying this also to you, but like we on Baroness, like we're known for a lot of our wine sketches, you know, like there's the Red Wine Ladies and sketches about drinking wine and storing wine and not drinking wine, all that kind of stuff. And the weird thing is I drink so rarely now. And even when we started the show, I had stopped drinking red wine for a long time because I get so hungover. I used to drink a lot. I worked at a brewery, you know, I was in theater school, you know, like there's a lot of drinking that happened, and that just like hangover after hangover after hangover of like barfing the next day and losing the thing, to the point where finally I was like, I think I might have liver damage of some kind.
Like this isn't fun anymore.
Yeah. So I stopped doing it mainly because of that. And now I'm such a lightweight. You know, I have like 2 fingers of wine. I can feel it. And I'm a lot of fun when I'm drunk. I'm a lovey drunk. I'm like, you're so beautiful. And like I want to tell people how talented they are and send them texts and stuff.
Oh.
I'm a real nice drunk. It's just the next day is so bad. But I'm also really lovely when I'm stoned, and I still send nice texts as well. And like we were talking, like it is legal, not just in Toronto. I believe the whole country can do it recreationally, and state by state, the states are getting closer to that. But I like obviously I've smoked weed since university, which was a while ago now. And I've always done it, but I've always had that same of like, oh, it's illegal. Don't want to let people know.
Yeah.
My parents, I don't even want them to know that I drink too much. But this summer, I was staying up with my dad, and I was staying there for a while, and I was doing a D&D Zoom night. And I was like, I'm almost 50. I can do this. I went to him and I said, okay, everybody, I'm going to go sit out on the veranda now. Daddy, I don't want there to be any confusion, but I'm going to be smoking some marijuana with my friends.
No
you know, and
way.
I just like said it like that.
Yeah. What did he say?
He was, you know, my dad is like 83. He was born in the 30s. So he was like, all right, thank you for not asking me and just telling me, you know, kind of thing. And, you know, he's still very, even though he's on like so many old person medications, and, you know, like, you know, you can manufacture and drink booze, no problem. So anyway, this is part of my, let's bring marijuana the love and respect that it deserves.
I love this.
I'm trying to smoke this joint. I'm actually I might have to roll another one.
I love that. Well, I was telling you just before we were recording, oh my God, you know when like your lip just sticks to your teeth?
Oh wow, you are high.
Oh, it's just I mean, listen, I'm so I'm like, as long as I can read all of my notes, that's what, because I'm like, listen, I care about this. Okay, I am getting a little high.
I'm here.
Okay, with I'm here with you too. But I was telling you off. Yeah, like so in preparation for this, I contacted my agent. I was like, listen, I think a literal text was, could I still be cast on the Disney Channel if I smoke weed on my podcast? She was like, yes. Listen, it's legal. She said yes. I trust her. I'm just looking at your face. I'm like, I don't know. But also, yeah.
Because I just realized I have something on Disney Plus right now.
Strange. And it showed me like how much I still worry what people think, and like how people will judge. It's also like anyway. Ultimately, I was like, what the fuck are they judging me for? This is stupid. Like, what are they judging me for? I think they'll judge me more for being worried that I'm being judged. Really?
I think that everybody will take this level of thought that you're giving to it and go, she's very high because she's thinking a lot about this really clearly. And then they'll say, oh yeah, I get it too. Because like, no matter how, I think you'd have to be an incredibly unself-conscious person to not be like, ooh, it's a joint, you know, kind of thing. I'm even feeling that now. and it's only because I'm like, I've already been on TV. I'm okay. And I'm almost 50. And so if I've said that twice now, but there does come a certain point where you're like, fuck it, I'm going to smoke this weed, which is legal and which is a beautiful plant. And people can think what they want, but we all worry, of course. And that's our trade, right? Like, we're in the business of having people approve of us and want to see us and get good feelings when our face comes on their screen, or their screen, their stage or whatever. So of course we worry about it. I mean, there's still things that people, get canceled for. So
yeah, well, and it was one of the things too is that, like, it also feels like in this business often which I don't think this is true, but it can feel like your future of your career is dependent on other people's perceptions of you, because they're like, oh yeah, I could see her as this character. And so, but really I realized what ends up happening is if you're too afraid to show the real sides of you, then you just become such a generic impression. Like, you leave such a generic impression on people. They don't know who you are and they can't picture you as anything. So you might as well just show who you are, and then you'll be magnetized towards the thing that are like the things that are good for you, that are fit for you,
No, that's so true. It's a lesson I'm still kind of learning. There are even times where I look at, like I'm thinking, how was I when I met that person? I was like, I was a really nice, inoffensive version of myself. So you're just kind of slippery. There's nothing for people to like get caught on, but then there's nothing for them to grab on either. For one thing. And yeah, I mean, it takes a lot of confidence in a way to put yourself out there, but you do run that risk. But you're absolutely right, and that's a lesson I'm still learning. Everybody's learning. We're all just learning.
Well, yeah. Okay, so I know that you grew up in Thunder Bay.
I did, yes.
And I would love to go back. So when you were growing up, what actors were you sort of looking up to, or what shows were you dreaming about being on when you're like, I want to be a performer, I want to be like them, I want to be on this?
Well, it's interesting you should ask that, because I've thought about this, because at the time I did not think I want to be a comedian or go into sketch comedy or anything like that. I did want to be an actor, but the things that I listened to the most were records that we had, like 45s, like long play records and full-on albums from Monty Python. We had a Bill Cosby stand-up record, which I listened to over and over again. And I mean, obviously that word has a lot more meaning now, his name, but at the time, like, it was an incredibly funny album that I listened to again and again and again. And I listened to their albums over and over. And I think my favorite shows were probably comedy. I think that, I don't even know if you know of the show's existence, but have you ever even heard of Three's Company?
Yeah.
Okay.
Never seen it, but heard of it. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So when I was in high school, there was a period of time between like middle school, high school, where I would get home from school before everybody else, and there'd be like 2 hours of golden, like, awesome television. It was like Facts of Life from like 4 to 4:30, and then I think Three's Company from 4:30 to 5, and there's something else, and there was the Golden Girls also eventually in there. And but of all, so I think like the Golden Girls I would watch. I never thought, oh, I want to be on that, because I never thought I'd be that old. But they made me fall all over laughing, particularly Betty White telling stories of, like, the weird people she dated in St. Olaf's. But John Ritter in Three's Company and that whole dynamic, like, I loved those shows. So it's weird, because I did not plan for a career in comedy, but I was like studying for one.
Yeah.
What did I really want to be in? I mean, I loved watching Cheers. I loved falling in love with like the romantic leads. I always wished I could do that kind of thing. And I, like, go to see movies, and I wanted to be, I remember seeing, oh God, now I'm getting high and I can't remember the name of the movie. One with Robin Williams. He stands on the desk and he's the teacher. And
Dead Poet Society.
Dead Poet Society.
Yeah.
That was the first time that I sobbed in a movie. Like I, had a few tears before, but I remember like, because after the guy kills himself, spoiler alert.
Spoiler if you haven't
then
seen
you're
it,
just, like,
yeah.
in shock for a while. Spoiler if you haven't seen it.
If you haven't seen it in
by the
decades,
time
yeah.
Yeah, by the time Ethan Hawke walks up, goes and stands up on the desk, and like the bagpipe music goes, like I was just like weeping with the release and the weirdness of it. So like those kinds of movies I would see, and I wanted to do that. There's a lot, there's a lot of putting yourself in places where you aren't actually, like, I there's just there were and still are more parts for men in movies and stuff. So there's a lot of times where I was like, I want to be like that guy. So you do this kind of, I to me, it doesn't feel like an erasure of myself. To me, it feels like a doubling of like what's possible for me. Like there's the part of me that is Aurora, and then there's a part of me that really wants to be Aragorn. And I don't mean like the female version of Aragorn. I mean like I want to be that.
Like,
so, to me, that feels like just that crazy plasticity that we have as actors, right? You're just like recognizing that truth, that beyond everything, beyond like the parts of our personality that we put together for dealing with our family and dealing with whatever friends we have, like the essential humanness can become anything, right? Like the stem cell of your spirit kind of can become anything. So movies like that made me really emotionally transport into something, I was like, oh, I want to do that. And I went to York University like for drama. Again, wasn't thinking comedy. Nobody there talks about comedy. It wasn't until the fourth year that I got a laugh hosting something, and I was like,
oh, what's that about? All right.
Yeah. So that was the kind of stuff. I had done a little bit of improv in like grade 12 when I went to Quebec for a language camp, and we did like a full-on theater sports. But I had to do it in French, and so I was so busy thinking about the French that I didn't worry and make probably a whole lot of improv mistakes that I would have had I been like really just
in your
like,
head.
in my
Yeah.
head. And then because I was doing improv, my French was better, so it was a great situation. But again,
Didn't think comedy, like even then.
I moved down to Toronto to go to York University, and the whole time I was there, I could have gone to the fire hall on Lombard. Didn't. I remember even seeing posters for Last Tango on Lombard and going, oh, that's a cool thing, but I never thought
but
about
not me.
City.
Yeah.
Didn't want to go, didn't have any, and then later on I was like, oh, I could have been doing it all this time.
Do you ever, like, I so often wish that anything that I love, I wish I did sooner. I'm always like, oh, why didn't I do this sooner? Do you ever wish that you started, I don't know, do you wish that you got involved with Second City earlier, or wish you started comedy earlier?
That's a good question. I mean, when I did start Second City, I was so ready for it, personally and professionally, that it just like to improv, but my career took off like a shot. Even though I could barely afford the classes, but they were like the highlight of my week. And personally, like when your personal life is in kind of a strange place, and you find something incredible creatively, it's like, whoa, like, so it had that going for it too. So I was really ready for Second City. Everything that they'd been trying to teach me about acting at York and the drama classes, I was finally able to synthesize when I was on Mainstage. And I was faking my way through Second City, because I had not done most of these games, hadn't even done all the courses, was trying to figure out what people meant by the rules to that game by listening to them talk about it. I was just, I felt like a total noob in the woods. It seemed like such an enormous crowd but everybody knew each other, and there were so many funny people, and Second City's its own thing. So I knew that I could bring, the York's drama program with me. Like, not that everybody else weren't also great actors as well, but I figured like I would just like hunker down into that, because I'm not a naturally funny person the way, say, like a Paul Bates is, where he's just like a premise generator and knows exactly how to create a laugh. And like, when I say things that are funny, it's usually by accident or because I'm being really sincere. And then I'm like, oh, right, that was a joke. I mean, I've gotten better at that, obviously. I guess in a way, of course, when I was like, oh, why didn't I go to that building? Because then I would have met this and that person. Of course I could. And it's a good reminder to like right now think, oh, what am I missing now? Like I could go out and do things. You know, it felt so awesome when I finally did find it, but who knows, maybe, you know, I was pretty uptight in high school and university, and I might not have been able to loosen up enough to do improv, because improv, as you know, is like, it's a nightmare. So, like, I remember before I took classes being once like this crazy, like Ukrainian, you know, like kind of, or Czechoslovakian director, like he did, okay, you gotta show up in the middle of a show and like just come in and you like step up from the audience and do the monologue. We're like, oh, okay. He didn't tell the actress in the scene that was going to happen. So we just stood up. She's like, we had never met her. So she was just looking at us, like I imagine the look on that was been on my face when I was really new at improv, of just like, what the fuck is happening here? Yeah. Like it was literally a nightmare for her. So it was really strange to be that nightmare.
To be that nightmare,
be the nightmare for somebody else and go, oh, this is what it looks like when I feel the same way you're feeling right now.
So we were chatting about improv, and actually this is something that I would love to ask you about, because you're such an incredibly experienced improviser. Wow, that was hard to get those 3 words out of my brain. And I totally agree with what you were saying. I think so much of what makes you a better improviser likely is what you need in your personal life, or can just help you. It's such a mirror. I'm wondering what's, like, for me, a lot of the things, you know, like trust yourself, just connect with the person in front of you. So many of those things I learned in class. A teacher early on told me improv is like therapy, and I was like, bleh. And then later I was like, oh fuck, he was right. Damn it. So I'm wondering for you, what's something that improvising has helped you change in your personal life for the better?
Ooh, that's a good question. I didn't see you going there.
Ooh.
That was so I was like, oh, you're going to talk about, you're going to talk about, personally, what has it helped me do? Many things. Or I hope that I've identified at least many problems. Who knows if I've actually fixed them. I don't know. I don't know how much effect it's had, and you can ask my coworkers for the last few years. I have a huge issue with interrupting, and I do it a lot. And even though I hate being interrupted, I have this lack of flow with conversation, and that's partially from having a dad who is like almost bipolar and will like ask you a question, and while you're just begun answering it, he'll zip away to somebody else, you know, that kind of thing. Plus there's a lot of kids in my family. I'm the youngest of 5, so I was always like feeling like I wasn't being literally heard at the table. And so there've been so many times I have tried to get myself to do that very basic game of like, so what you're saying is, you know, like to take a breath and then to listen to the end of the sentence. And I find I do that also. I do it less in improv than I do in life. So that's what I've tried anyway. I do remember there was a watershed summer for my improv, and it was a good life lesson as well. I had already done mainstage at Second City, and I felt like I'd finally, you know, as I was leaving, like achieved a level of skill that the job deserved. But it was several years after that, and it was a summer where it had just been preceded. I'd just been able to sit in on the Second City auditions for the first time, I think, and it was like the general auditions. So I was sitting there for a few days watching like group after group after group of people come in and audition. And I highly recommend watching auditions to anybody who's in the performing arts, because it just like, it's illuminating about how you enter a room, what certain behaviors can look like, even no matter who's doing them, you know. One of the other interesting things about it was that, you know, because there were so many people and it was long days, and part of your brain is really concentrating and being open for each person and giving them all their best, but part of you is like thinking a zillion thoughts. So we started keeping lists, because weirdly some things started coming up multiple times in a day, like weirdly specific things, like somebody saying, I'm Whitney Houston or whatever. or endowing somebody as a deli counter. Like there was some things where I was like, oh, that's strange. It's in the ether today, I should say. But then we started taking little notes of just like, oh, blocking, blank, like, and asking questions and like blank, like just all those regular kind of like basic rules of improv.
Yeah.
And it was shocking how, not shocking, but like to see it baldly when you break it down that way, like how many times people were doing things. And it just really drove home one of the most basic rules, which is to make positive choices in scenes. And again, I am a naysayer. I am a worrier. I'm a Virgo. I'm like, are you sure about that? Should we do that? Like I hold back the action in my old life all the time. And that summer I was like, I really I think that was the rule that, that was the rule that I decided to home in on. I was just like, make positive choices in scenes, like make scenes that not just say, sure, I'll go along with that, but like that forward the action, that keep it going. I mean, I didn't have to get crazy about it in like a Keith Johnstone kind of way, because they'll be like, like, then you stay clearly next, you step on the frog. That's what has to happen. I was like,
okay, we can also just go look at the frog, like chill. Yeah.
Yeah, but just like it, and it meant that I got up out of my mime car to go to the other person's car more often than just sitting there and chatting them in a funny kind of way, which I am prone to do a lot. I'm and that summer I had the opportunity to do that too, because Monkey Toast had taken over the nights at the Transac when the Fringe the Fringe center used to be in the Transac Club there. And so every night we did an improv show, and I did some of the best improv of my life during that week or that 10 days that summer. And it was just, I felt like I'd hit a plateau with my improv, and just going back and just dialing those really basic principles just made my improv like shoot off in the stratosphere again. And I'd had such a really steep learning curve at Second City, but of course learning, even though scary, is really enjoyable, right? Like achieving and leveling up feels amazing. And I just felt for a while, I was like, what am I doing? And so that kind of really made me a better improviser for sure. A more physical one, a more active one, and just one that like let scenes keep happening. And as a writer, that has done so well. Or just remembering that is like, are these people just sitting talking about nothing? Like, where do we have to go? Like, there are only so many minutes that we have screen time. Like the story's got to go somewhere. When I'm editing, that kind of thing, you just start to have this feeling for like, this is just slowing the action down. It better be charming. If you're going to stop the scene from happening for several minutes while you and this other character say funny stuff to each other, it better be pretty funny. I'm not that funny. I have to keep keep the scene going along. So I would say that kind of thing, like just those I remember that summer really specifically, and having the opportunity to observe a ton of improv, and then a good chunk of time with enough, enough technique and hours on stage behind me that I had the tools to do it. And then also I was improvising with like Jack Mosshammer and, Lisa Merchant, and like just incredibly good people who are like some of the best, Lisa Merchant is like in the scene, and she's taught and inspired so many people. And Jack is just like maybe, and I know a lot of great improvisers, and he's maybe the best one I know. It's really hard to make that call. Yeah, it was just so much fun. And fun to learn, and I felt like I could feel myself learning the lesson and applying the lesson, and so that felt really satisfying.
That always feels sort of like that's the great validation. And it's so interesting to think, like, if I'm picturing, and I know this is like so simplifying it because I'm just taking the points that you've told me, but thinking of like a young Aurora who's the youngest of 5, who's like, hey, is my voice going to be heard? Hello. And then you speaking about like conversational patterns with your dad. And I'm thinking, well, of course, on one hand, performing would feel so wonderful because when your time comes, like there is allotted time for you to say your lines and for you to have your action and that be your moment, and when it's coming. But then I thought, wait a second, but then you seem so naturally attracted to improv. which you don't, I mean, you're still on stage and you still have, you know, as performers, we still have that validation of like, okay, people are watching and listening, but you don't know when your time's going to come or if it's going to. Somebody endows you as like a deli counter, like you said, and then you don't get to talk or whatever. So it's just, yeah, it's so interesting that that's sort of the area of performance that you naturally were drawn to.
You know, I hadn't drawn that conclusion about improv, because in a way improv is like a more concentrated version of the family dinner table, right? Like it's like there's more reward and more, you know, the competition's pretty stiff.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're right. I guess it is weird that I would dive into it, but maybe it isn't weird. I mean, you know, we always want to get in with our old trauma, right? Sometimes we marry it. Sometimes we just date it for a while. Sometimes we do it for a living.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? Oh God, I'm high, but I had a really good thought.
That's the highest thing I've ever heard you say. I've literally
full of good thoughts.
Only ever talked to you for an hour in my entire life. Like, that's the highest thing you've ever said. Like, really?
Oh, I say it every week. What was I going to say? It was, but improv. Oh, but when a set goes well, it is so, it's like 100 times satisfying, more satisfying than having a good conversation with your family, right? Like that feeling, and I think it's more available to you when you're on stage, because even though you don't know what's going to happen, there's still like, you know, 40 to 60 people watching what you're doing. And they're giving you all your attention. So you have this arena where it's like, okay, these people on stage are talking. Maybe we don't know which of them is going to talk, but we have your attention. So it's like a fantasy come true. There's not only people looking at you, but lights pointed at you. Like,
yeah. You're like, where are the people? Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And then, you know, like, I don't know how you characterize when you know that you've been part of a really hot night, like a really hot set. But for me, I'll try to describe what it actually feels like. On a really hot night, I don't have to worry about interrupting the person because I'm watching them and I'm listening to them. And at the same time, I know where their sentence is going and I can feel the proper response that I should say. Like, it's like I can see the sentence arcing over from that performer over to me, and when it actually like lands on my head is with the time I'm supposed to say it. Like it can get that weird and metaphysical, and I don't drink or smoke anything before I go on stage because it's too scary.
Yeah, I don't either.
How metaphysical it gets.
Yeah.
But you know, like when I've had a really great night or been part of a hot set, like, you know, not only me being funny and on it, but everybody being funny and on it. The feeling that I get is what I hear people describing they get after a good meditation session. I've never been able to meditate. To me, it's like it's too much stillness, but I can let the rest of the world and just be in the moment, in the middle of a good scene, because I'm not even writing it. Like, it's just the scene is coming to me, and so I feel so energized and happy and loving and awake after a good scene. And you know, like, a good set is literally the best feeling in the world.
Yeah.
It's been so long. It's been so
I
long.
know.
I've never done a good improv night. Like, ugh.
I know. God, if that's not like the most fantastic advertisement for people to start learning improv and performing improv, I don't know what ever is. Like,
it's great.
It really is. Because I think too, you know, I think there's a because we're talking about validation, even in that, there's a validation in that is unlike anything else. Because you walk off and you're like, the only thing up there was me and those people. Like, we all came together. And the only way that happened is if we all connected, we all, you know, allowed our minds to get still enough to allow that, like you were saying, like connecting on a whole other level. And fuck yeah. Oh, it makes me miss improv. Oh, that's so nice. That was so wonderful.
I was saying this the other day. I miss even like watching a show, like sitting in a crowded audience, like shoulder to shoulder, and, you know, laughing at something together. Because when you're watching a hot set and you're part of like a crowd that's all working together and laughing together, that is also like its own special night, right? Like when you're all like, there's an in joke that you all have with a performer on stage, so everybody's laughing, and even if, you know, like those kind of nights, like I miss the crowds of that. I miss I mean, even the bits that I'm bad at, like the introductions, I'm like, hello. And I'm, like don't know what to say to anybody and like all the social awkwardness and all that kind of stuff. But like, man, it's, I mean, you realize like, if, how like the essential workers of theater are actually the audience. They're the people who come to it because it's just not the same without them.
I know.
You can do Zoom shows.
Yes. And some people are great at them.
Some people are great at it.
Yeah. I want that live dialogue with the audience. Like that's so much of it for me is having that I would miss that. But yeah. Oh, I can't wait to get back to it. That's what I have to tell myself. I can't wait. When we go back, I'm going to have so many socially awkward conversations with people and fucking love it. I'm like, do you want a small, I don't even know who you are and I don't even like you. Do you want a small talk? 'Cause I'm so fortunate to be in your presence right now.
We'll still be on the same page. We'll still be a little bit on the same page.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay. So you come from a family of artists. I know your maternal grandparents are both like iconic Canadian sculptors and artists.
I forgot about Marco telling you.
Yeah,
that's right. That's right.
And so your grandmother, Elizabeth Winwood, studied, and so cool, like studied and also was friends with people in the group of 7, which is like so freaking wonderful. And also an amazing sculptor herself. And then your grandfather, Emmanuel Hahn. Okay, I thought this was so cool. Also made tons of, his whole career seems cool. But it's so cool that he designed the Canada's Voyager dollar coin, almost a dollar bill, dollar coin, and the 10-cent blue nose schooner, which is so cool too. When I learned this, I like went over and got my dime and my quarter out. And also the caribou on the 25-cent coin. And I'm thinking like, okay, growing up in Thunder Bay and then moving to Toronto as an aspiring artist and then as an artist yourself, what was it like being literally surrounded by like various forms of art created by your family? Was that inspiring to you, like, or was that intimidating, daunting? Were you like, this is in my blood? How was that?
It's a good question because when you say literally, sculpture all over the house is what I because like not just, I mean, we just always knew like, oh, granddaddy did this and this and this and stuff, so we knew, but like, they had done a lot of sculpture and some of it my mom just had around the house. So like there was like the one woman with her hands, in this kind of position, so we'd like put our mitts on her hands and that kind of stuff. Or I'd like when I was really little, I would like play with them, and so they seemed totally unremarkable. I thought everybody had like portraits of their grandmother hanging up. I later learned that plus not a finished basement and no cable didn't do any favors for me in Thunder Bay. I was like the only person who like didn't know. Like, I knew some culture and not others at all. There was one time I was in grade 7. I'd switched to this new school. It was kind of like a banger school and headbanger school, and I was playing hangman with this girl that I was getting to know in grade 7, and I was playing and I just was not getting this thing, and this crowd was joining and people were losing their minds because the solution was lead Epelin, and I had no idea what it was, and I could not. I did, of course, didn't guess Zed. I just didn't put Zeppelin.
Because you don't get Zed in Hangman. Yeah. Oh,
because that was just not the kind of culture that my family was into, and I felt totally humiliated. And I was like, "This is not what I was told about the outside world." That people would make fun of me for not knowing a band. Anyway, so there's that. So like in some ways, I know a lot. My mom's godfather was Lauren Harris. Like it was, they hung out together. I will say it gives me, it gave me one kind of appreciation for the landscape. That actually, if you look on the old silver dollar, there's the Voyager one. Behind the canoe, there's a very small kind of like island that is a real Georgian Bay, Canadian Shield kind of thing, and that's actually based on an actual island that my grandfather bought in the 20s.
Yes. Also heard this on Marco. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
That same, I mean, it's a beautiful place. It's still in the family. And for a few years, it was actually there was a sculpture specifically about that island by her that I think is what he used in her sculpture was called Northern Island, and it was this beautiful 3D sculpture, and then he put it in the background of his own thing as kind of a, because they both loved that stuff. And for a while, that actual sculpture was the award that they would give out at the Canadian Screenwriters Hall of Fame. So like Joni Mitchell and Leonard Cohen and like a bunch of incredible.
Wait, they wrote screenplays?
No, they just used that sculpture as the actual award that they gave to people who are in the Songwriters Hall of Fame.
Oh, for songwriter. Oh my God, I heard screenwriter. I'm so sorry. I was like, Leonard Cohen wrote a screenplay. I'm so sorry.
I was mumbling.
So cool.
So that kind of stuff. So it is really cool, and it's a certain slice of Canadian history and art, but I mean, it's only a certain slice. Like, it wasn't until I read about Chani Wenjack that I was like, wait a minute, who was there before they had like all those kind of questions you never ask yourself growing up.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't really question the distribution of land in northwestern Ontario around Thunder Bay. I didn't know until a few years ago about a lot of stuff that went on up there. Anyway, so I say that because I don't want to just be like, oh, incredible Canadian history. So that island is part of a area that used to have people living on it, and they shrank down to a reservation, and then people like my grandfather and the Crown had it, so now we get to go camping on it. And that's a full history of the silver dollar.
Well, I do have to say, one of my favorite Baroness Von Sketch sketches. I always fuck it up when I say the sketch twice. One of my favorite sketches that is on the show is the land acknowledgement sketch. Like, I worked at TIFF for a while, and it was one of the first years they were starting to do land acknowledgements, and I was just like, I don't understand what the point of that was. Like, it was just like, so they were here before us. No, that's not the right wording. We're going to fix it. Like, all the wording just didn't feel sufficient. And your sketch land acknowledgement, it was just like, I just kissed like a pizza pasta.
Well, credit for that. Carolyn Taylor wrote it, and she was really, she wanted to really slice the issue correctly, because she felt that same kind of like, what is this kind of thing? Like, because on one hand you're like, you know what? I didn't even know some of those names. I didn't, was never made to know, or, could get away without knowing a lot of those names. Didn't really think too deeply about who was here before. Again, you just kind of accept the country you're given. So on that end of things, it was like, oh, okay, I see why we're talking about this. But then pretty swiftly, it's like, so should we go? Like,
it's like
unseated. It's like, we're here. Should we be feeling bad about this? And like, what is it? Like, are we going to do anything about it? And so I think it's that after a while of just hearing it, it's just the very, very first opener of a conversation.
Yes.
And if it doesn't go beyond it to anything else, then it's, it's like in any relationship, you're like, we could talk all we want, but until you actually, clean your underwear up, then, fix this. We're not going to go anywhere. We can have the same.
It's not going to happen. Yeah, exactly. We can flirt forever, but if you don't ask me out on a date, nothing's going. I don't know.
And, like, I think also there's, the same willingness that, whatever you want to call it, like the progressives, the left, or whatever you want to call it, like, the same willingness that to listen and to try to make sure that other voices than the same white ones are in there. That same impulse is not very far away from the same impulse to be seen, to be trying to hear, like, you want to make sure that you're saying and doing the right things, but that it only goes so far. And I think that that's a lot of people's frustration with, people who are like trying to do and think the woke things, but then it doesn't actually translate to much action. And it's certainly like, that was like last year. And then we've seen like an intensity of that kind of sentiment this year where people are like, oh, really? Like, like you're changing you're changing the logo to like a black, Reddit sign for a few weeks, but is that over now? Is that over? Like, I think that's it's, and I did think it was pretty good territory to go in, because it was this kind of uncomfortable thing. But I just thought that Carolyn was just so smart about it, because it is about the hypocrisy of like, we'll just keep saying it, but what are we going to do, guys? I thought it was a really well written scene, and I had a lot of fun being that woman.
You did it so well. It was so great. And I think one of the masterful parts of the scene, watching it too, was the line where Carolyn, I'm paraphrasing, but where Carolyn says like, oh, okay, we're just supposed to enjoy the show. Like, it's like, you're gonna make me think, you're gonna bring awareness to that. Wonderful. Now you're telling me, okay, but ignore it, enjoy the show. So now you're asking me to like actively choose to forget to, it's just, I loved that part. Okay, so we're gonna enjoy the show now.
We thought about it for a minute, and now you can go back to ignoring it. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Such a good part. Yeah.
It's kind of like, in a way, it's like, I wonder, and hopefully I put this correctly, so that my thoughts are clear, but in the same way that people cut themselves sometimes to get the rush of endorphin that comes after it, or you put yourself through some punishing kind of thing because of the endorphin rush. Sometimes I wonder if people want to talk about these terrible things for just a couple of minutes, so that they feel the rush of like, and now I've talked about that thing, brought awareness to, and they can feel good about themselves, and then just feel back to like everything being the same. Like it's I think she's a bit on the money.
God, just slipped right into a perfect fucking accent there. Look at that. Oh, that is, I mean, absolutely. I mean, so many people, I think, walk around worrying that they're a bad person. And so absolutely, I think like, okay, well, if I talk about this thing, that then I will get the message from other people. They think I'm good for a couple minutes. Thank God I'm not a shitty person.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think it's that like performative aspect that you're talking about of like, okay, but now you got to make it it has to be a little bit harder for you. Like the work, there has to be a little bit of work. It's not going to be that easy to like do something. Yeah. It's just, yeah, I'm totally with you on that. I totally get. I mean, when people are like, God, pat on the back, good for you. Of course, that's an endorphin rush. Of course, you're like, thank God someone thinks I'm good, because here I was worrying that I'm a piece of shit in my tiny bubble house. So, but just, push past that. You don't need to feel good. Other people are feeling awful. Let's not feel good for a second and just do some of the work, What? No. Let's just...
Being okay with feeling bad for many minutes in a row, like it's such a skill. I know people are always like, kids these days, they don't know how to do it. Is that true though? Like, wait, how old are you?
I'm oh my God.
Did you almost tell me you were 19?
I tried to tell you.
What is going on here?
I tried to tell you the year I was born and how old I was at the same time, and it wouldn't come out. I'm 30. I was born in 1990. That's what I was trying to say.
Oh, 1990. I
Finally.
remember that year so well. What was I going to say? I know, like, you always read stuff from people going like, I don't know, these kids, like they can't just like fend for themselves and stuff like that. But to be honest, I'm not out there enough to know if that's something new, or do younger generations always seem a little sensitive, or I don't know, like what is the
I feel like they always have something. I feel like there's always a kids these days. There's always something.
There's some version of that. Somebody's always complaining about.
Yeah, kids these days smoking legal weed on podcasts, and we're like, oh. I also didn't know what to say. I feel like such a loser. I'm like, do I call it Mary J? Do I call it pot? Do I call it weed? Like, what will make Aurora think I'm cool? And this isn't the first time I've smoked. That's literally, I was coming in, I was like, what the fuck do I call it?
I don't remember actually what you called it.
Me neither.
I remember thinking, wow, this woman is extremely cool.
You're such a good liar. You're such a good actor. Oh my God, I love that.
No, I think don't oh my God, don't worry about what I think. And you are very cool.
Thank you so much.
Podcast. I don't have a podcast. I don't have the discipline to do a podcast. Jesus.
Oh God, I don't know
like following up the dates and reminding me with links and like doing it. I'm like, I have great ideas with no follow through.
Oh my God, no, but here's the thing. This podcast, I sent an email to Ashley Como in 2016 asking her feedback. It took me this long to do it because it's what is that? Perfectionist till paralysis or whatever. That's what I do. That's what I do. You know, I'm curious. Okay. I'm curious because, so I know before Baroness, you had so much experience writing and acting on stage and on screen.
On stage writing, you know? I don't know that I didn't have as much screenwriting, but
screenwriting. Yes, You're right. You're right. Like, what the fuck am I doing? Of course you're right. It's on you. Like, yeah, of course you're right talking about you. Duh.
Well, I did feel like a junior, you know, like I definitely had done a lot of writing the Second City way for sure. But I'm just being modest. Anyway, sorry, I cut you off.
No, that's fine. I was wondering, going into specifically like creating a TV show, what surprised you about it when you were going into season 1 that maybe you like thought was going to be different or you didn't think about going into it? What was a surprise about it, about the process?
I mean, I'd done a lot of I'd done a lot of work in front of a camera, so I certainly knew like, you know, the process of doing stuff. And as many people do, like, you know, we've done like so many, you know, like, hey, we're shooting a video this weekend for my sketch troupe, can you be in it? You know, like, of course we'd all done that. I'd edited some things, you know, so I knew that I liked it. I had just been working on a web series with Nadine DeJury called Newborn Moms.
Yes.
And so we had been producing that. I think the biggest surprise was, I mean, it's hard because there's a lot. I mean, I learned the most about the things that I had no knowledge of, things like distribution. I guess I was surprised at how quickly that taste of creative control freed my mind from something that I think we all get very used to in this country, which is thinking small, because you have to think about what is possible and you have to, you know, judge, you know, can I pay my rent? Do I need to do this ad? You know, am I going to be a reader? Like you're always thinking of just on a survival level, especially when you're an improviser and you're so used to doing everything that you do for free. You know, if you get $5 after a show, it's like, woo, amazing.
Like drinks on me, like multiple, as if, yeah.
And because we had been given an incredible amount of creative control for being Baroness. I'm still amazed that we got it. We, you know, from the very get-go, we had creative say, not meaningful consultation or anything like that. It was the Baronesses have final creative say. And, you know, I think that's the chutzpah of Carolyn Taylor, Meredith MacNeil, like, but also the chutzpah of us saying like, no, I'm in my 40s now and I've done enough. I do know what I'm talking about. And being given that and then seeing it follow through to fruition, I was surprised at how much I could fake being an executive producer. It was a real fake it till you make it. I was like, I know that I am an executive producer, but I'm going to be today playing the role of an executive producer in this
Yeah.
And, you know, like we all had tons of smarts and experience. Like we did have all the knowledge, but having that confidence. So getting the confidence from being an executive producer, but then just being able to produce something well. And I mean, of course, not everything that we did was a home run, but we did many times come up with something that we're so proud of, that and also that we felt we were really able to, from the very first idea to here's the fully realized vision. And I'm surprised at the attitude it gave me, which, and I use the word attitude carefully because it is a little bit of an attitude of like, no, they need to give Canadian creators like a lot more thing. It gave me, when I was like, then shortly afterwards being given a shitty contract, I went from being, you know, like a nice Canadian girl to being like, are you kidding me? We're going to talk out this option because that's the fucking business we're in, dude. You know, like that kind of thing.
Yes.
And I think that we have convinced ourselves as Canadians that that kind of stuff isn't possible, because so much of the time it isn't. You know, you do have to go somewhere else to get, you know, the States has so many more people and so much more money, but they do have a bit of a more adventurous attitude because of it. And our waspy roots, even if you're not actually WASP, it's kind of there in the accepted culture of the country. And so, for instance, there's, you know, like we all know about the struggles of when productions come here, they have to satisfy a certain number of key positions must be filled by Canadians for them to get their tax credit. And it used to be like 8 out of 10 had to be Canadian, but now it's like down to 6. And there was a lot of concern about this because it meant that Canadian actors wouldn't be used as much. And, you know, that's bread and butter for a lot of people. That's how you pay the rent, so that you can do your creative things. And I remember, you know, like we were even asked to, you know, could we come to a meeting and talk about it? And I couldn't actually go to the meeting, but I remember thinking, I sent them a message going, I can't come. But what I would really say is that we all need to be pitching way more, pitching ideas to networks way more than we do. And that surprised me the most, just realizing that like, Canadian television can only make as good an idea as they are offered. That we actually do have much more potential to make a really great television scene here, but it takes a bit of a chance on part of the people handing out money. Again, I still don't know how we convince them to give us all that. It does seem like a weird anomaly. But also we just have to believe in ourselves that little bit more. So I was surprised at how quickly I was able to believe in myself. And I think it's also because there was a team of 4 of us. It was like none of us wanted to let down the other 3. So it's like, well, actually we really need this, you know, kind of thing. And we started being really good at just like asking for the fries and, you know, asking for the good stuff and repeatedly asking for the better promotional material, which sometimes didn't go to us. Anywho, it's like, I'd love a bus shelter at some point. That would be great.
Give me one bus shelter. It doesn't even have to have a bus that goes there anymore. Just like give me a bus shelter. Yeah. Well, it is a little bit like the chicken or the egg, or that's the perception of it, is like, well, if it doesn't seem like they're investing in Canadian content, then no one's going to want to pitch. But if they're not pitching, then nobody. But I do think you're right. It's like, well, it doesn't hurt to keep pitching. I mean, I don't know. I'm saying that from very limited pitch experience. So, but yeah, I mean, one doesn't go without the other, but definitely like keep pitching.
You're totally right. No, you're totally right. Because also like, it's not just that like, it's not just that as creators, we need to believe in ourselves a little bit more, but also the people who are handing out the money need to like get more. They're the ones really who are like, they're literally the gatekeepers. And I really wish that, and I wish for CBC, and let's give props to CBC, because like as much as, you know, people are always going to find fault with CBC for something, like they're the game in town who are actually working with Canadian creators. So awesome. But I wish that in general in this country, there was more, that people would trust their own experience as viewers. I think that in general, this is a big generalization, in a place like say New York City, people are ready to like, whoa, I just watched something and that was really cool. I think other people will also find this cool. So I'm going to go and show them this really cool thing. Whereas here it's like, I kind of thought that was cool. Did anybody else think that was cool? You know, like they want to check to make sure. You know, like Sam B, she was auditioning here in Toronto. She was a sketch artist here, couldn't get in the door. And then she got hired in The Daily Show because she's amazing. She was just like her.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. We auditioned the same. I remember sitting there with her and like, and it was just like inevitable that she would be hired on that show. And then look at all this. And then like cue to like the next year, it's like, oh, can you come and, you know, be a host on the Geminis? And it's like, nobody even wanted to see her in the door. You know, like there are many really talented Canadians, but you need to have the courage of people saying, I really believe in this person. I'm going to take a chance and saying yes and not go by committee kind of, you know?
Yes. It's like, well, and it's so ingrained in so many ways. Like, even I'm thinking when you said, yeah, I gained an attitude, and I'm like, it sounds like you gained faith and confidence, but like, I think we're so used to calling it, I think we're so afraid of not being humble maybe, or afraid of seeming like we're boastful. And it's like, I think our worry of that, we're never going to surpass boastful. Like at best, we're going to seem confident. Like we can just, believe in ourselves. But you're right. Also, the people dishing out money, like believe that the people here are fucking funny and talented. Also, there's not as many opportunities. So I don't know. Now I'm like, go Canada. We're working double as hard. But anyway, there's such talented people here. I so agree with you on that. And I'm so glad that Baroness got such like, it seems like it's so widely received in a positive way. I mean, I remember first season coming out like afterwards, and like celebrities posting little videos saying like, oh, this is so funny. I love this. I think like Vogue magazine said something about, I'm paraphrasing, like, oh, this is the best thing to come out of Canada since Ryan Gosling. And didn't you get compared to Amy Schumer? I think that was New York Magazine. Like, that's incredible. Yeah. Like, I'm wondering after like the first season, having that, and I know it must feel different to somebody in it versus on the outside, but how did it feel after first season going into second season with sort of those expectations? Like, did you get to celebrate the victory of season one, or were you just terrified that you had to live up to it for season two?
Ooh, good question. I mean, season one we did without any eyes on us because nobody was aware of it. And we shoot so far in advance that actually we were writing season two while season one was beginning to air.
Okay.
So I remember that we were in the writing room the day that the first scene was going out digitally. And I remember Carolyn at her computer going, okay, here we go. And she, we were also paranoid that people were just going to like say horrible things about us. And it didn't go that way. And then I remember, like it's pretty surreal. Like everybody who said incredible things are like that people were writing about it. And then like for me personally, like I had a person who I really admired, tweet about the show. And like, so Michael McKean, who's now on Better Call Saul, but like I knew him from like seeing him in Spinal Tap, and Spinal Tap was a huge one for me actually. When you ask about things that I watched, I remember watching Spinal Tap and being blown away by the level of acting that was possible, where I was like, oh, and I remember specifically it was a scene just after the Stonehenge debacle, and the manager, so Michael McKean's character is sitting there just chewing out the manager, and he was so angry. He was so good. And I remember that scene specifically going, oh, wow, so that's how committed you can be. Like, it was just, okay, I get it now, and so the fact that he specifically tweeted about the show, like I was so aflutter. I couldn't believe it. And we've had many people say nice things, like Janine Garofalo came to be on set.
Oh my God, I'm like, such a fan. I know, God. I couldn't believe. Yeah. Oh, that's so cool.
She is tiny. She's
really?
So tiny. You can't even believe it. And she was amazing. And she was like, a cool person, super prepared, was staying just a few blocks from the studio we were shooting, didn't want the driver. She's like, I'm going to walk. She had her own cool, like she was kind of like what you'd like love to grow up to be living in New York. I don't think she has any social media. She's just like always been herself.
She's too cool for it. Genuinely. She doesn't think she's too cool. She just is too cool.
Cool.
I love her.
She was great. And it was because we'd heard that she was in town doing a writer's workshop, and she'd done some stand-up, and she was talking about the show from the stage, and so people were like, you could probably be on the show if you wanted, like, and she loved the show. And so that was pretty amazing. I think that the whole offering that we've made to Peak TV, it's like, here's our sketch show, take it. We hope it's good enough. Like, the best reward is that when people I admire it back.
Fuck yeah.
Because I get like, it means that I might be able to talk to them in a normal way, as opposed to like the craziness of my fanness.
Yeah. God, but then how do you go, like, so you go from that, like, people you look up to so much, tweeting about the show, wanting to be on the show. How do you make season after season and not worry about like, oh fuck, how am I going to keep this up? Like, how do you or maybe that's not even on your mind. I don't know.
Let's see. It is a bit of a tunnel that we're in, because it's a full year job. And if you're being the showrunner, which Carolyn was at first and then Jen took over, it's really overlapping, because like we'll start thinking about the hiring in like February of a year. This is going back, like even earlier, if we've been like having conversations about who do we really want to, for the big positions like directing or whatever. So we start like talking about hiring in like February, February. And then we're like writing by mid-March. And then the writing goes, by the time we're in season 4, we had 10 episodes. So that would be like 10 weeks plus a couple more weeks just to like account for the overages that we want to shoot. And then there'll be a couple weeks of like just the Baroness's fine tuning and deciding which we want to do and how we're going to cast it. And we always like do a rewrite. Like we're, there's like a huge generation of material. Like there was one year, did we write 700 sketches or something like that for one of the bigger seasons?
God.
Like, it's crazy because we overwrite so that we can lose the stuff that isn't working.
Yeah.
And then we overshoot so that, again, when it comes to the edit, we can lose the stuff that didn't work. And so that's it. We're actually not that good. It's just that you're just seeing the highlights.
I beg to differ. Yeah.
so that happens. So the writing happens, and then that goes to like the end of June. And then usually we would have like a bit of a break, because also while that first writing was happening, the showrunner is like in the ending of the edits from the season before, doing the coloring and the sound stuff. And there's probably, like whatever, when we were airing in the summer, there'd be promo coming up during that time as well. So like, there were some years it's like there's a vacation, but you don't actually get a vacation because I'm also like working on newborn moms, and then stuff. They're good problems to have, right? You're busy.
Yeah.
So then we're really involved in the pre-production. So that would start like mid-July and go like through the 6 weeks of August or so. And then we would have a couple weeks. We're supposed to like just be rehearsing. Inevitably, of course, there's a zillion meetings because we're involved in so much. So and for the first 2 years, we also did not have an assistant. So we were doing like all of our own scheduling and stuff like that. And we just about lost our minds. And then we had Paul Kingston, PK, come in for season 3. And then Aaron Conway has been with us for the last couple of years. And so necessary. And then shooting happens, and shooting goes and goes and goes. And then that's done. And then editing starts. And that goes for weeks and weeks and weeks. And that takes you to February. So that's,
you don't have time. Yeah. Like you don't have time to doubt yourself. It's like, okay, yeah, I don't know if I can do this again. Oh my God, but I'm going to have to. Okay, bye. Like you don't even have time.
Learn to like produce. So in the way, like, being at Second City really prepares you for that, because like, especially when you're writing a show, it's like you're rehearsing all day, and then you do a show, and then you do improv, and then you do notes, and you're just like running. So that endurance level is kind of there. And you forget sometimes that anybody outside of the production even watches it, because I spent the last 5 years with 3 other people, basically, like we're just in that playing. And then, so when people would come on the show, like I would only see my friends when we hired
on
them.
set. Yeah.
On set. It's like, oh my God, Miguel or whoever, and so that's another reason we're so lucky, because the bench is so deep in Toronto. It was like, I know the perfect person for this. And they're not even in like, this person is actually from the acting community, and this person's from comedy, and they will be great. And then sometimes we learn, met whole new people, but we were so lucky because there's so many good sketch comedians who are like hilarious, and they're great actors, and they're just funny standing there, and they look perfect. And
that's the dream. I mean, the dream to be able to create your own show, and then also to create opportunities for people behind the camera and in front of it, for like to create those opportunities for people where you're like, I know you're so fucking talented, and maybe you are working as much as, like, maybe you're working a ton, but you're not working as much as I think you should be working. So I want to hire you. I want to pay you to do the thing you're amazing at. Like that's such a dream.
Isn't there's that pleasure of seeing something new that's amazing, like, it's like, I don't know why people are like, I don't like these new, sci-fi trends toward wokeness or whatever kind of thing. It's like, why wouldn't you want to see a whole new demographic on screen, or a whole new bunch of people you haven't seen before? Because this is like, it's like there's that pleasure when somebody is cast perfectly, and it's like, that's everything I hoped it would be, and a little bit more. And you're not overused. People haven't seen you in 2 zillion commercials, so I know this is going to be like fresh and amazing. And it's a great feeling. I mean, it's great to be able to give your friends work.
Yeah. Oh,
use
so
their talents
deserving.
properly, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, of course. Of course. Well, and I think like you talked about sort of the scarcity complex, like especially here in Canada, where it feels like there's not enough work. And I think it's easy to want to say yes to all the opportunities that you're offered because you just don't know when the next one is going to come. And so I'm so interested to hear, like, what was the experience like for you guys to decide that the 5th season was going to be your final season and not be like, okay, we're just going to do, if we can do a 6th one, we'll do a 6th and a 7th and a 7th. I really respect the decision. And I'm wondering what the experience was like deciding it.
I mean, in a way straightforward and in a way a little bit drawn out, because like we made the decision during pre-production before season 5. We had already done the writing, and I mean, we were all very tired.
Yeah.
And some of us had some pretty intense stuff happen in our personal lives over the last few years as well. And I know for me, I was just thinking, okay, like, I know that I have enough gas in my own tank to do this season if I, if I know that afterwards I'm going to get a good long break, and I'll still have gas in the tank for, are we going to ever tour? Do we want to write, like things beyond just a television show? And I mean, yeah, of course it's really tempting to keep going, but I really feel like personally, I don't know that I would have survived. So it was good to, I mean, the horror for anybody in improv and comedy is like to stay on the stage longer than the scene wants it to be going on, right? Like,
yeah.
And people have always, now that I think about it, people have always praised our ability to like get in, get out with a joke. And we're always really careful about trying not to take other people's material, like you write a scene, you're like, oh, this scene is brilliant. People like, they've already done that. Oh, fuck, I haven't seen it, but, or whatever. You're like, oh no, you're right. It's like this. But it did happen. I think it happened a couple of times in the season 5 writing where I was like, oh, we've done that scene actually,
no way.
That just happened like a couple of times.
Yeah.
I mean, there were still like, like filled with incredible original ideas and like an awesome writing room and all that kind of stuff. But I think you just always want to go out before people are tired of you. And if you're also really tired, then, plus like everybody has other, things they want to do. And I'm pretty excited. I don't know, we might be in a position to be able to like, see, like people are like, what do you want to do next? Like, let me help you. So it's like, oh, let me test this theory. See if
yes.
So, some people are already like acting in new shows and writing in shows and developing stuff, and I'm trying to develop a pretty wide array. I've got a little handful of things that I'm working on. They're all really different. So that's exciting, and I'm really excited to see what everybody else does next, and then eventually if we do write a movie or whatever, I don't know, we'll see. So that's a really long, unsexy answer, but that's just kind of like the actual truth.
Honest is always sexy. It's always sexy.
It is sexy.
It just is.
Sexy.
Yeah, 100%. It's the sexiest thing. I also have to say, this is maybe weird and maybe the we, but I also feel like, I don't know why this maybe feels weird. One thing I noticed in all 5 seasons of the show is your looks were so good. Like, I think even in the scenes where I was fully aware that your character was commenting on like making fun of a person or a type of person, I was like, I'd fucking wear that, and I want my hair like that, and I don't give a shit. And you have this like weird, beautiful, like X-Men gift of making everything sexy. And I was testing this theory today. Even I was going through and I was rewatching a bunch of episodes, and I was like, how does Aurora make every character? You just have, and I think it's like, you're just so present in the moment and you're so grounded in your performance. It's so believable that I'm like, maybe that's the sexy part, because being honest is so attractive. I don't know.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, that was my rant, but
that's, Well, first of all, the clothes, so much of my wardrobe are the clothes from set because I was like, oh, I would never buy this for myself, but I love it, and then
Did you get to keep a bunch of them?
You got to keep a bunch of clothes. Am I wearing the jeans I'm wearing right now? Fidelity jeans, and these are from set.
Fidelity. I also love that cardigan.
Thank you. This I did not buy from set, but I wore it to set all the time because we had the sweater wars. Hang on, I'll just show it. The fin up and
sweater wars.
I bought this online. This was one of the first things where, I was on Facebook at the time and it was like, hey, have you looked at this, clothing company? Buy Could. And I was like, sure, those look nice. And I ordered this from like from those mail-in like Instagram ads.
Yeah.
It came, it was amazing. And me and one of the one of the hair artists, Min Kim, they all had a big thing for like cozy sweaters, right?
Of course. And yeah.
But this one really stood the test of time, and it just kind of goes over everything, and I loved it. But yeah, I've kept a ton of clothing from the show. I mean, like none of it is very expensive. I think like in first season, I was in this scene called Great Dress, where I'm wearing a great dress, and then they're like, "Do you want to take it?" I'm like, "Yes," and I walk away with the mirror, and it's a stupid little pun. But the great dress was such a great dress, and it was $60. Oh my God, it blew the budget. Most of the stuff we get is from like Value Village or, but sometimes they'll get some nicer things that we can't keep. But I'm a sucker for like a really good pair of jeans, a sweater that falls just right. And I've gotten better each year at not just grabbing everything that's like eye candy, but it's like, will I wear this?
Yes.
Like, okay, this is a bit of a bolder color, but it's a good, stretch for me. So I have like a red trench that I was going to be wearing all over the place. This year, and there was nowhere to go.
And now it's just all over your apartment. I know. I do have this new thing that if I haven't gone clothes shopping, I don't even remember, but if I put it on, I have to look in the mirror and be like, fuck yeah. Like I feel amazing or no, like, or it's not happening. But honestly, I think my dream wardrobe would be your wardrobe from Baroness. Like it's incredible. Oh my God. I love I think I love all the outfits. I didn't find one that I didn't like. I mean, I know like in one you're an alien. So like I'd wear that, but like, anyway.
That was
ones where you're
human.
That
took a team of people. Well, certainly for the last 3 years, our wardrobe guru, Nicole Manick, she works in town and she is a wonderful human, incredible designer and a great look wrangler, and she had this gift of like looking at our bodies and be able to choose clothes that actually fit our bodies. Like she just had she knew from looking what someone's volume was, right? And you always kind of want to ride the line because it's like we're not like nobody thinks we're models. We're not here to make people think how beautiful every moment is. Like we need to look ridiculous. So you need to balance that with sometimes going, but my ass looks so good in those pants. Why do I have to cut the seam? My ass is never much better. My hair looks great too. Why?
Yeah. The scene didn't work and we hate what it's saying and there's no, but like my ass, there's no laughs. It's offensive, but my ass. Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, that's so funny. Well, to finish up with you today, Aurora, I would love to just ask you some little quick questions about yourself, if that's okay. Okay, great. Okay, so my first one is, what is your go-to munchie snack when you're high?
Oh, I will say Haagen-Dazs strawberry ice cream.
Oh,
just a full pint of it.
My mouth just got so dry.
It's so good.
I can't have milk, but I have some cashew ice cream in the fridge that has like, and when Ben and Jerry's started doing dairy free, like, I'm sorry. It's so much sugar in it. It hurts my stomach, but I don't care. I buy it all the time. Oh, that's such a good answer. Strawberry ice cream. I haven't had strawberry in a while.
You're going to go to the corner store.
I'm like, I think I have vanilla bean ice cream, which also like cashew vanilla bean ice cream.
Do you need maple syrup, like actual maple syrup?
Yes.
Drizzle that over the vanilla ice cream. And
we're a little high. We're like, drizzle this over. That is what I'm going to do. Do you think if I add some cinnamon, would that be good or would that be bad because it's cold? Maybe that's not good.
No, cinnamon on vanilla, especially with maple, that'll go.
Okay.
That'll go. Got a little ratatouille kind of, putting all the things together.
Yeah. Okay. I'm so into that.
What else do I like? I used to do this thing where I would have frozen blueberries and then put them into a bowl and drizzle maple syrup over them. You could stop there and make it your vegan dessert, but then you can also drizzle like heavy cream over that, and the freezingness of it. And you don't have to have even frozen berries; they can be fresh. I did keto for a while once. It was just like cheese and blackberries, cheese and blackberries.
Cheese and blackberries all day. I have had keto explained to me so many times by Andrew Bushnell every time.
Oh, yes.
And I am so fascinated by keto. And when he would explain, I'm like, how? I don't know. I need to figure it out.
Let me give you my explanation.
Okay.
Maybe it'll add to the explanation that you heard.
Yes.
To me, I was like, what you're saying to your body is, we're not going out for takeout until you've eaten everything in these cupboards. And now you have to start eating what's in the cupboards. You know, when you're like, oh, can we just go out for dinner? It's like, we're not going out for dinner. You have to eat what's on the shelves and in the cupboards down below, and what's like in the things on the canisters. Because you're basically telling your body, like, you have to use up your fat reserves. And you will start, it takes your body a few days to, apparently, this is the science as I read it. And I'm sure Andrew also told you this, but like your body has a variety of methods of breaking down fuel into energy, and it will always choose the easiest one first. And blood sugar is the easiest way. So if you deprive your body of blood sugar for about 3 days, it'll finally switch over into ketosis, and it'll be like, fine, we'll burn fats for energy if that's how you're going to be. And then it starts using everything that you have all over the place. And once, if you stick to it, and you keep that chemistry up, because it's the chemistry of your body that you have to keep up. Even if you have like, it's like, well, can't I just have one sandwich? It's like, no, because then your body will be like, oh,
then you're out of ketosis.
Just go back to yeah. You have to keep it there, and that's when you get the keto breath and stuff like that, because you're literally dying. You're literally breaking down.
I was just watching
your body.
that scene of you and Meredith today. Yes.
That's what it's based on, is me. I tried keto. I did not talk about it. Everybody else was like, oh, she's doing keto. I'm like, I said nothing. I said literally nothing, because I knew this is how it would be.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Yes. I should also say Andrew didn't talk about it a bunch too.
Then you start.
Oh, sorry. No, you go. I think we're lagged in our audio. That's what's happening.
A little bit. So it is definitely a fat burning strategy kind of thing, if that's what a person wants to do. And then, but then after a while you're like, I'd really love a muffin, because like carbs are happy. Carbs are love, right? Like carbs, like you do that. And then like the first time I was doing keto just before I hosted the Great Canadian Baking Show, I just started it on my own. And they're like, okay, but would you like to eat stuff? I'm like, yeah, fuck, I'll eat the bacon. If you're paying me to do it and you want me to do it, yes, I'll do it. What am I going to do? Not eat the bacon?
Yeah. Sorry.
So I went from like keto to eating all the icing. Like in one day, I felt very strange. But like you don't. Sometimes I want to lose fat for the camera, and sometimes I don't give a shit, and I just want to eat all the food. Yeah, it feels really good.
Yeah. Sometimes you're like, I just want to be happy. What am I gonna, Yeah. Oh yeah. Fuck that. Strawberry ice cream. I'm having ice cream after this.
Oh, that's how we started talking about.
That's how I started. I'll remember. It's all a wonderful Alice in Wonderland. I'll bring us back. What still intimidates you creatively?
Singing, although I love doing it and I do it a ton privately, but to the point where I almost might have gone into musical theater, but then I started developing this fear of auditioning, and I went through a few years where I could not audition. I would be able to sing in the waiting room, walking in. I just lost my voice. I couldn't do it. And I still feel a bit nervous about that.
What's a show, a book, or a podcast that you're really into right now?
What did I just get into? Let's see, book-wise, I'm reading like a whole bunch of short stories. Podcasts. I guess show-wise, What was I just watching? This is again the we talk. Like, what was I watching?
I know. I'm like, maybe I shouldn't ask you for like memory recall right now, because like I couldn't tell you.
No, it's kind of like dementia. I can see what I want to talk about. It's just finding the words that is a little bit weird. I mean, we did get really into Raised by Wolves.
Oh,
This
okay.
is in September. We got it really into Raised by Wolves and The Boys. And those were kind of my like way more intense than reality escape television.
Yeah, totally.
But I will say this is such an old favorite, but I will encourage anybody who is thinking about it to go and read Lord of the Rings, all 3 books. Because
okay.
And I love the movies. I rewatched Fellowship the other day just for comfort. But read that book. It's worth the dive into the 1,000 pages and all the, it's an incredible book.
Okay, I love that. Oh, I love that. Okay, I will. All right, and my last question for you today is, when was the last time you felt victorious or proud in your personal life? Listen, I'm forcing you to feel. No, are you like? I can see your face. You're just like, no.
Oh, bless your heart for thinking that anybody had victorious or proud moments this year.
That's why I'm like, listen, let's try and think of one to make us feel better. I don't have one. I'm not saying I have one on my mind, but I need to believe somebody has one.
Okay, no, that's a fair question.
Is it? I don't know. It's 2020. Is it fair to ask that?
I think it is fair. Most of the victory or joy that I feel in my life is usually centered around my son. Because he's such a sweetie and he's 10 years old. So it's a really rich time because he's just like developing all the time. You're just like watching somebody like level up in front of you. It's pretty cool. This summer we not only I was spending a lot of time up in Aurelia where my father lives, and we went on a few bike rides together. And then one day I really needed to stay in the house. I was like, look, it's Aurelia. It's not Toronto. Why don't you just like go down to the lake, take my phone. If you're 10 years old, you can go for a walk by yourself, starting to get into that. And he's like, well, why don't I bike down to the lake? And I was like, yeah, yes, sure. Because it had been a little bit of a battle trying to get him. It had been a bit of a struggle for him. He's not one of those kids who's like, I'm going to face down every obstacle on the course and like gets into it physically.
Yeah.
He was like me. He was a bit like, I don't know, I may hurt myself, So the fact that it had been pulling teeth with him a bit the year before to get him to even try to bicycle. And so the fact that on his own, he suggested bicycling down a hill to a lake and then back up again by himself, I was like, oh my God, like it's happening. And I felt both those emotions. Yeah.
Aww.
So not for me, it was vicarious, but I felt good as a mom, I guess. And on his behalf.
Yeah, that can totally be a victorious, proud, like, of course, proud mama moment. That's wonderful. I actually have to tell you, I read in an interview, you gave a quote about parenting, and I read it and I was like, I think this is the most beautiful thing, like advice for parenting I've ever read in my life. You were talking,
hear what I said.
Yeah, you were talking about, and now because of the weed, I'm afraid I'm going to ruin it, but I'm paraphrasing, but you were talking about like just coming to your children as they are and just letting them, like just loving them for who they are and not trying to write their future and write their experiences, and just love them for exactly where they're at right there and experience them for exactly where they're at right there. And I was like, fuck, maybe I can have kids and not fuck it up. Like I was like, that was beautifully said. Anyway, I might have ruined it, but it was.
Say that beautiful. I don't think I said it that beautifully. I think you said it very well.
You said it even better. I'll send you the quote. You said it even better. It was a beautiful thing.
Well, I was probably quoting something that I had read, because I remember reading something, because I don't come up with stuff, man, but I had read somewhere that somebody said that the thing your child wants to hear from you the most when they've done something is nothing like great job or whatever. What they actually really want to hear from you is you saying, I love watching you do X, whatever it is. And think about, like, if somebody you admire and love says, oh man, I love watching you improvise, like they're not saying you're great or not. Their enjoyment doesn't depend on your skill level or your, worthiness or whatever. They just love watching you. And it made so much sense to me when I read it that I thought, like, I'm going to remember that when I'm a mom, and put it into practice. And I don't know if I'm too loving. I'm that loving. I'm like, I just want you to know that I love you. And I love watching you do your designing drawing. When we tell you to get off the iPad, I love it. I love every drawing you've ever done. Like, so it's too much probably. He's never going to suffer from not knowing that he's loved. He's going to be like, ugh, enough the love, Mom.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's beautiful. Oh my God, my lip again. That's so beautiful. I agree. Yeah. Because then you're not, I think it breeds less imposter syndrome because it's not about doing a good job. It's just about doing it. And I think that's like so wonderful. Yeah.
I mean, it might mean that he's never driven to be an Olympian. So maybe he won't achieve much because he's just already really secure. As opposed to like, it always seems that like the people who reach the highest heights are doing it to like make their dad love them.
Yeah, totally. I said to my therapist one day, I was like, I'm really afraid that if we work through everything that I won't be a good performer anymore. She's like, that's not going to happen. I'm like, good. That's not going to happen. But sometimes you're like, yeah.
No. Your trauma and your talent are not related. You can use your talent. Your trauma can become fodder for it, but your talent is your own and you will not fuck it up.
Oh,
I can tell you that now, young lady.
Oh, young lady. What a fucking wonderful way to end this. That was beautiful. Your talent and trauma are not related. You heard it here. God damn it. Use it for fodder, but they're not codependent. It's not, what is it? Like,
I hope you still think oh no, codependent is the right word.
Codependent. I was trying to think of, in statistics, they say like, correlation is not causation. That's what I was trying to think of. There we go. I used to tutor statistics. I should really remember that. Yeah, I do still think you're a rock star, if that's what you're going to say.
I wonder if you're going to think that when you listen back to this tomorrow when you're not high, though. You'll be like, what was she saying? She made 5 points, and I asked her one question,
Yeah, but you did it.
Like, wow, we made some deep.
Yeah.
I think we had a really deep time, and I think we had a loving time, and I think that is what weed is, the gift to the world of weed as your poison is a good time.
I love it so much. And and
now thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you for coming on. And you're welcome to all your friends that you're about to go love text and tell them how lovely they are. You're welcome to all of them. And thank you so much for doing this. It's been such a pleasure getting to chat with you. And I just so appreciate you generously gifting your time and your thoughts to me. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate you doing it. I appreciate also the crazy research that you have done.
Oh,
thank
you.
And the interest and care you put into watching the show. And thank you for allowing me to gab on about it, because of course I love talking about it and the craft. And it's a real pleasure to talk about questions like that. Because sometimes we get the same kind of quick questions, and it's really nice to just talk about, the experience of being on stage with somebody who does it too, right? And being a performer.
Oh,
so thank you.
It's like the best thing I could hear.
We'll be talking about your show and be like, so long time ago, she interviewed me back when I was young and had a voice. Now she's the queen.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the Liquid Courage podcast. Whether you are watching the episode on YouTube or listening wherever you get your podcasts, I really appreciate the support, and I'd love to connect with you. What's been your favorite episode so far? What topics are resonating with you? What's something new you've learned from one of our awesome guests? Find the podcast on Instagram at Liquid Courage Podcast and on Twitter at Liquid C Podcast, and let me know. And if you like what you heard today, hit that subscribe button and leave a review or rating. It helps me out a lot, and it banks you some good karma. The world is a really scary, uncertain place right now, and being able to connect with these inspiring artists each week has really helped me mentally, emotionally, spiritually, all the illies. Safe virtual connection has been such a huge source of support for me, so I hope in listening to this episode you feel a little less alone and a little more connected as well. Thanks again for listening. It means the world to me. Stay safe and take care.